Hey y'all, welcome back. It's me, Tara, ready to talk about game dev. It's been a while. Appreciate y'all's patience and support over the years. But yeah, it's literally been years since I've done a video. Um, just been busy. A little bit of motivation. It's like the desire's there, but just busy. Um, so yeah, here today we're here to talk about states. Specifically, states should be data. Um, Little story time. About a year ago, I kind of started watching game dev YouTube a lot more, and it was really inspiring. Seeing a bunch of new creators and just a lot of good info. However, um, I specifically was looking for, state machine stuff, because I have a pretty good handle on it, but I'm always looking to find out new info. Clicked on a video from a new creator I really like, and they did inheritance. So you have like a basic or abstract script or class, excuse me, and then you inherit from that. So you just have like a state class, and if you want like a jump or an attack or something. Um, that's bad. That's no good. I'm sorry. It's so bad. I can't imagine. Well, I can't imagine developing that way because I did something similar, but even then it wasn't that bad. That just seems wild to me. Just really unwieldy. States should be data, and you can't update it at runtime. I know there's like stuff you can do with Unity, but yeah, if you take anything away from this video, in fact, this is sort of the focus. We're going to be touching a lot of things that are not going to be explained very well. And those will be in future videos. Um, this is the fifth take I've done of this video, partly because I haven't recorded in a while, partly because I want it to be short, but there's just so much to talk about. It's difficult. And that big video or series of videos that covers all these things will be coming, but I just really want to get this concept out there that you should make your states data. And then if you're using Unity, they should be a scriptable object. End of the story. From there, figure the rest out. Because if you're not doing that, like, it's just a nightmare. I don't know, man. But let's get into it. So for us, what does a state mean? Well, it is a state that an object can be in, usually a character in our case. And certain things happen. And when you're in a state, you can basically only be in that one state. There might be flags and things that sort of adjust it, but generally that's the power. Frankly, it's the restrictions are good. And so you're in that state, and at certain points, things happen. So you may jump at the beginning, there might be dust particles, there might be sound effects, you might create a projectile, you might do any sort of thing, right? You might use an item, there's tons of things. And so when that happens, I call them an event in the classic, I don't know if classic's the right word, but in the typical programming sense, events mean something a little bit different. But I just call them events. And what's an event? Well, it's a thing that happened, and it happened at a certain time. And so the two most important things in an event are like the script, and I'm going to get into this a little bit more, and like the when, a start and end. In a different kind of implementation, in fact, I spent all day yesterday trying to separate these out into like a conditionals class, and I think it could be done, but it was just like giving me a headache. And also run into the issue of like designing for too general rather than what's called like application specific. So make everything generic and everything sort of general. It can get a little unwieldy. Like you're making everything so granular, it's like sand. And so it's really hard to work with. But you got to find the own balance, like for your own game. And so that'll probably be available or covered in a future video. For now, we're just going to do some hard coding stuff. And, you know, I use this and I love it. It's just a lot easier. So here, you know, we have tutorial state event. We have a script. We have a start and end point. Sorry for all the extra stuff. I've retaken this like 5 times and I'm just so sick of it. I just want to get this info out. And so a state is simply just like a collection of these events. It also has a length. And a lot of this we've covered in a previous video a long time ago. But the full sort of implementation of it, I didn't like. I didn't explain some things very well, and I wanted to. And then just a list of those events. So then we have, so if you wanted to make this, sorry, in the normal video I was doing that, but like, you know, create a new scriptable object, your project, just right click, create, scriptable object, and we call it, you know, just state or state object. I often use whatever, you know, blank object as like if it's a scriptable object as a naming convention. But for state, I don't know. For that one, I don't know why. I always just keep it state. And I have tutorial in here because that already exists in the project. And then we have a character control. You know, our character basically has a current state. We're also going to want a default state. So whenever we end the state, we either go somewhere specific or you can loop. It's up to you to implement. We have the current frame. And so like the current state and the current frame are the two like big elements of this. Every frame, let's see, current frame increases by a tick, right? I also have a normalized version of it. The reason there's this sort of like back and forth, like normalized here, not normalized other places, is because in the state, these are actually scalars. They just go from 0 to 1. I mean, they're floats here, obviously. But we said it should be 0, and 1 because when you're designing a skill or whatever can attack, you'll want to change the length a lot. Like, you know, maybe you have this attack and it's like, actually, this should be like twice as fast. Like, it should be 45 frames. It's crazy it was this slow. If these are scalars, you know, if the start is at 0.1 and ends at 0.2, then that will scale with the length of it. If you do strict frames, like if these were ints, they didn't have to be ints, but like if they were, you know, a specific start frame, then whenever you're scaling this skill, it wouldn't scale with it. And it's like a huge pain. So I recommend that. So fix update, current state, frame increases 1, and then we look through all those states and we do an evaluation first to see if it passes. So we go to that and you know, it looks through all those conditionals. Again, ideally this would be like a whole separate class, and this is kind of bad programming, but this is just the best way I could do it. But like I passed the character here. And, you know, we check if it's active. This is just a local thing. So you can turn things on and off, like when you're testing it. You have the normalized frame. If it's less than start, or if the normalized frame is greater than the end frame, then we return false. Otherwise, we return true. I found it most helpful to set it up this way. Sometimes you're going to want to like force a return true, depending on, you know, certain conditions. But basically, you have all these things. You have to meet all these criteria. And if nothing happens, then we pass all the way through, and then we execute script. So here, we're going to get into it later. There's a ton of different ways you can do this. They all have a bunch of issues. I know I'm speaking really abstractly here. Like we haven't really like covered much, but hopefully the timestamps will be helpful. You can skip over some stuff. But basically, we need our scripts to be sort of generic too. So one way you can do it, which I find works, is using an enum. So like here I mentioned, I made like a new enum called character control script enum, and defined here, and then declared here. So this is a bit clumsy, right? Because you have to basically, whenever you want to make a new method, you have to define a new enum, say projectile, and then you have to make that new. And then implement it and stuff like that. In a way, it's nice because it kind of gates it off. You have to kind of be like serious about it, I guess. But you can also use reflection, and I'm not going to get into it here, but I am going to provide it. I am going to cover it briefly, but I'm going to be providing all my projects, and you can just dive in and figure stuff out. I will in the future again be making like a nicer video to cover it, but it'll make more sense when we get into it, like why this is so tricky. But I want to cover this real quick. So what is that actually doing? Well, basically we just read that enum, and whatever enum the script has, it will execute that, right? So we're going through all the different events in a state. If it evaluates correctly, if we're within the time frame in this case and it's activated, then we'll execute. And so what do we execute? Well, we look at our enum. So we did like cam relative movement. I just called it cam move. And we, execute that method. Call that method. I don't know what the right word is. Here's where it gets a little tricky. And this looks really cursed. I get it. It looks cursed, and it is. I'm sorry. But in the end, it's really, really powerful. So in our events, we also have a list of just floats. You can make a list of other stuff. In my, 12 years since Aces Wild came out, I started doing it basically back then. This works fine. It's really, really jank under the hood, but the way it gets exposed as we make like custom editors and stuff, it's really, really powerful. Sometimes you get a little bit confused at like, what is this doing? But yeah, and we'll flatten it out a bit with reflection. So basically we have this list of floats, and we pass them, and like cam relative movement, it takes a power. So what this is actually doing is, it takes your stick relative to the camera and adds that velocity of the character. It has a power, which is basically like the move speed. It has an operation, which means you can either you're doing it additively or setting it specifically, or you're multiplying. Probably shouldn't use multiply here. Multiplying is really rare. It's more for like scaling it down, like if you want to slow down a character. And no face, you can turn that on if you don't want to face the stick. Here's where it gets a little tricky, right? Because this is like a bool, but it's a float, and you can kind of forget like what it might mean. So let's finally get into the project. Turn these off. Just gonna hit play. So we have a Johnny here. She doesn't actually have like a moving idle animation. Our little enemy here does, but she's just sitting here. And on the character, there's some this is going to require like either my previous tutorial or just that you have a good understanding of like a character controller, like a basic one, where you have like the physics implemented, the character controller, and you have like collision and things like that. So like we said, current frame counts by 1 each frame, and then we have like the normalized version here. You can make your own implementation for this part. This is a good place to start though, is to have, if your current frame is greater than the current state.length, which I didn't cover either very well, like each state has a length, right? I mean, I talked about it a little bit in scaling it, but you know, each state has a length. Out through it, when we get to the end, we just reset it, right? So current frame equals 1. I used to be like super into frame 0 as like a way to work. But I ran into these things where like, I don't know, frame 1 just started to make more sense. I don't know. I know it seems silly. So anyway, I got back to frame 1. Basically, like frame 0 means outside of the state, like in a sort of naive way. Like you don't necessarily know what state you were in before, but because for this is actually a really weak sort of implementation. It's going to give you some weird behaviors at times. Because it has to be like directly within that, and even if you do like less than or equal, it can kind of give you some weird stuff. Anyway, this is just to show that like we're resetting back. So this counts up, goes back down, and we just have this one state, right? Like generic idle. So delete all our events and create a new one. Sorry if that wasn't clear. So this is our list of events here. Again, you know, like the length here. This is the animation state, which we haven't implemented yet, but it will call the character, or excuse me, the animator controller specifically, to crossfade or play like a new animation. After we do this like really basic stuff, I'm going to be jumping into like several projects to show you like the real extent of what you can do with it. I know I've said this like 4 times already, but like it's just too much for this video, but I will be covering it. So let's make a new event. And you know, we have our script. Ignore like the text script, right, or the string script. We have all those scripts that we defined earlier in that enum. We have whether it's active. This is set to be active by default. I don't know why it's not working. I don't know if it's like a little bug by doing it this way. So start to end. So we've done cam relative move, right? And we want that throughout the whole state. I'm realizing I didn't even show how to like make a new state. So let's actually, so you right click, create tutorial state. We'll call it tutorial idle. And we'll go into a Johnny. Now we need to assign these. So actually assign her current state. Oops, you can see how she's defaulting back to generic because that one says, so let's do that. Then she'll just pop right back in there. Did that make sense why that happened? Because she goes to her default state when she gets to the end. And so we just set the default one there. 60 frames long. And just to show you, like if we make it like 500, you know, it's going to take 500 frames to get there. And I work in fixed time because I'm ancient. I like using fixed update. Just deal with it. You can set this up to do it your own way if you like. So nothing's happening. Let's make something happen. So we have cam move. And, you know, it starts and ends here. I'm actually going to sort of put this out of bounds. Oh, I guess I can just keep it inactive. So like we said, let's do from 0 to 1. You know, you might want to make these sliders with attributes. However, this on the right here the default inspector gets really, really clumsy. So this is going to be like the second part of this video where I don't go totally into like how you can do it, but I will be providing the code and I'll just like do an overview. Sorry, took us forever to like get through this part. I'm sorry. This is why you watch me though. So cam relative move. Once it reaches a state, it's going to do something, right? So what does cam relative move do? Right, it's like I explained. It moves us based on the camera, you know, our stick position relative to the camera. And again, it takes a POW, or it takes 3 floats. It takes like the power, the operator, and like a bool here. We're using it as a bool to decide if we want to face or not. Here, where we're actually doing it, you know, this is where it gets tricky, like I mentioned. You know, parameter 0 is the power, parameter 1 is the operator, and parameter 2 is the face or not. So this will, you know, throw an exception if we don't provide enough parameters. So let's just show that real quick. So if we turn this on, now we're getting a ton of problems, right? So we need to make sure we have all those parameters in there. Like I said, this will be flattened out with other implementations. Oops, sorry, my friend just is playing Red Dead. So we'll turn it back on, and we're not getting an error. And we have our little debug thing here. This should actually be within each script itself rather than outside of it, but this was just like a simple thing. So I move the stick around and nothing happens. She faced the stick for a second there. It's because we haven't set like a move speed. So we set 0, 1, and now when I move the stick, she'll move around. And if I make this, actually I have to turn this way down. If I make this additive, she'll speed up. It's hard to tell the difference, but it's like, that's the operator parameter. So basically if you want to do like set or add, or so you have the same velocity here, and it's just setting it, you know, specifically to 0.26 as the move speed. And if we turn no face on, she won't face anymore. So there might be certain skills where you want that. Just to show you more specifically what's happening. Turn that off. So since I copied it over, we're getting all sorts of fun. I turned it off. Oh, cam relative move is setting the Y velocity too. That's a bit of a mistake. It's fine. It's because I programmed this terribly. So does this all make sense? I know you can't answer me. I'm not doing this live. Do you understand what's happening here? You know, from 0 to 0.1, you know, so the first 10% of the state, we set our velocity to 0.26, or our Y velocity rather than the front velocity. I fix it by doing additive. Normally I have it like ignore the Y. This script too is like cutting my front velocity. I don't know if you can tell, but like when we jump, we pause for a sec. And so now, because I did additive, it's doing it for all these frames. And it's like way too much, right? Turn that off to go back down. Did I fall off the edge? This camera is slow, gamer. Okay, so hopefully that is enough for you to understand and like sort of get started. we can do like a lot more. So I'm going to sort of skip ahead here. We're going to go back to our regular one. A bunch of stuff set up, right? So we have a Johnny. She can move around. She can jump, attack. I don't have like hit stun stuff set up right now. I just wanted to focus on there, just like being these states and stuff. All these different attacks. Let's actually move the camera. I moved the camera in, but I understand now why I had it back so far. Remember that attack being so big. Well, maybe we could adjust that. What attack is that? I don't remember. So here is the state editor. So this is going to make it way easier. So basically, all this stuff we saw here, like all these really abstract events and parameters and stuff, when you use custom editors, you can parse all this stuff out and make it way easier. So let's actually just stick with like her basic attack. So just have this basic attack here, right? And so I have this script here called front end stick. So it's like front velocity plus stick velocity. It's really handy for like certain attacks. You want them to move forward a little bit, but if you're holding forward, she'll move forward a lot more, if that makes sense. And you could get by this, or you could implement this simply by having like two separate methods. But you know, as you develop, if you find yourself doing certain things and you'll want to make like a new method, you know, be like front and stick, and then implement that. But we are gonna get a little fancy. So what I do now is use reflection. And like I said, I'm not gonna get too much into it. But it's the right one. So in the editor, we use reflection, which is, if you're unfamiliar, it's like a C#. I don't know if concept is the right word, but it basically lets you look back in on yourself. So you can, you know, just take a method, you know, type of character control. It'll go through all the, in this case, it's getting all the methods. And in our case, it's storing it to a string. So what does this nonsense result in? Well, it means that any methods I make, I can just have access to all of them. So we have like get hit. So a lot of these you can exclude, but like I have front velocity full, which is like allows for like Y. Easy jump is like if I just need like a simple Y velocity that with only one parameter. The way this is set up, it also auto-populates the parameters and their names. So like I have chain one, so make a new one here. And I don't know, just do that jump like I mentioned. So it's just an easy jump, and now I did not like that. I think this script might be outdated, the jump one. This is like a combination of like a bunch of old stuff. Is it under Y velocity? Oh, I'm not seeing it. Jump's gotta be in there. Sorry. I hate when this happens. Maybe a simple jump. So you can see she hops now, right? This might be more interesting if we just like made our own method real quick, but I am like at a loss as to what would be helpful. Let's just do it. So I'm going to call it extra good jump, and just to show you, like, that's not in here, right? And these are alphabetical order. So I have easy jump, execute event, which might create like a loop. You don't want to do that, I don't think. In here there is like a, oh, this is really small. Sorry, this is a really old version of it. This excludes events. You'll want to exclude a lot more, or in methods, excuse me. But we'll go back into our character control. Do like public void extra cool jump. Not sure what I call y velocity on this. Just velocity about y. And let's just do it like this to show you all the things it can do. So extra cool jump is just gonna basically do that again. I do have to close out at that point. Let it recompile. But you can see now extra cool jump is in there. And she's gonna jump really high when I do this, so. No? You're embarrassing me. I'm embarrassing myself. Y'all saw it. Y'all knew. Y'all knew. This is also helping us illustrate how we have to go back and forth like this to make corrections once we have it. What's the matter? Does it require at least a single parameter to work? Seems like an oversight. I'm so sorry. That shouldn't be the case. Sorry, I'm gonna pause for a sec. Thanks for waiting, y'all. Yeah, just a bit of a bug. Newer versions of this are better. I fixed that, I think. But if you ever run into something weird like that, click here and then click on it, and you can investigate this. It was passing parameters when this, even though I did a new one, it shouldn't have had. I don't know if it's like a new Unity thing that even when I do this, it like looks at the previous thing in the collection. It's weird, or maybe there was data for like a previous, I don't know, but it basically created a bunch of parameters it shouldn't have. So it's trying to pass that parameter. And also I was right, it is positive, is jump. So anyway, not play. So she does her basic attack. She pops up in the air about 10 frames in. If you want to bring it back to the beginning, she does it right away. Bring it to the end. Pops at the end, right? This is already awesome if you haven't used this sort of thing in your like workflow. But let's make this even better. So, this is basically like our other jump one, but for illustrative purposes. So we just added a parameter. The way I have it set up using reflection, this has to use floats. I make some exceptions. I don't remember how I have it set up, but basically, you know, some states need to pass things, or excuse me, some methods need arguments passed to them, excuse me. You already have a bunch of floats here, which is also sort of like code smell, they call it. I'm comfortable with this. It's just a necessity of this. This is for spawning a new particle system or a visual effect of any kind, really. we need all 9 of the transforms, rotation, scale, position, need a speed, need a deparent frame, and they need the actual like prefab itself, and then it does a bunch of other fancy stuff. Anyway, get back on track to what we were doing. We added this new argument for this method. So now when we go in, it's already populated. It has a name that we gave it because we used reflection. So now the jump isn't doing anything, but if we add like 0.1 here, boop, it pops up, put it near the beginning here, it pops up there, make it last longer, like that. Like I mentioned earlier, there's like different ways you could do like conditionals. Here I do it in a non-generic way. I would like it to be a little bit more generic in the future, but just having these specific things are nice. The main ones are like if it's active or not, obviously. That's mostly for playtesting, obviously. The frames it executes on. I can't even imagine a scenario where you wouldn't need the frames. If it lasts the whole state, then you can just do this, right? Like, hold is whether or not you're like holding the button is for certain skills. Like if you hold the button down, it will like loop back or make your velocity faster, things like that. Like jump in the air. Like if you think of what's it called? The launcher in Devil May Cry. I forget the name, but if you hold the button, he'll jump up with them. And then this one here, it'll only activate like if you're in the air on the ground. I make a lot of generic states. I'll make new animations, but basically they're sort of identical under the hood. But that means you will need to have like conditions for whether you're on the ground or not. So if you have sort of like an air chain move, this is actually a separate move. You may want to have like velocities and stuff that keeps her up in the air. Yeah, so I wanted to just sort of poke around with this sort of like final attack. I gotta get rid of that that jump. Boop. So you can see all the different things we had here that we can mess with. I like this one because it's sort of a jumping and lunging attack. So let's say we're... Can I assign that? Actually, let's just do that move, her launcher, because I'm not sure what it's called. Let's see. Chain 6. Oh, that's what I'm on. I just assumed this was 2, 3, 4. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So, chain 6 is this one. That effect is maybe too big, right? So let's bring it down a little bit. See, it's closer to the ground now. We probably want it up higher because it's a launcher, but just for illustrative purposes. Actually, I'm going to bring the camera back out. All right, so now that VFX, that does look bad. Let's bring it back. But it is a bit big. Actually, bring it down a bit. That looks better. So I brought it down by 0.2. Does that make sense? So this is the position X. I didn't explain the implementation of this VFX script, but it takes a visual effect prefab or anything. It'll spawn anything with these things on the transform. Takes the positions. Already position Z is like front to back. If we wanted to push it out a little bit more, like that, or leave it close, it would look whack, but depending on the effect, you'll want that. I do think it's a little bit big. I think I was making the impact bigger, So I did that. I think that matches better. Matches really well. So I brought it down by 10%. The speed is good. but let's say we wanted it like if it was a heavier attack. That looks pretty hot, right? So that's the speed. It basically just controls the speed of the particles and things like that. The deparent, I'll turn deparent on full so you know what it means. You can see how the particle sticks to her. If you turn it off, we don't want that either, right? So having it follow her for a little bit and then let go is what we want. Yeah, hopefully this is enough. You know, it's kind of anticlimactic, but it's just really powerful, good stuff. I had intentions of like showing other games and stuff, but really everything I showed there is the same. You can see if the editor is much different in this game. I think it would take this long to load, sorry. I don't know why Unity's like this now. Just likes to reload everything. I'm not sure what I could do to illustrate anything new, but you also see how that's really powerful, right? I didn't even mention this, but because it's a scriptable object, we have our editor here, right? We just click on here, and I want to work on Rachel's chain attack, her chain 1 right here, right? Turn her bracelets off. They're not being. We're rigged for some reason. So, it's like her first attack here. Maybe that's like a little wimpy, right? So maybe, I feel like I'm sort of covering everything I've already covered, but I want the scale of this to be like a lot bigger. This might be too big, but yeah. Oops, wrong move. The way I fucked up, sorry, excuse the swearing, when I set up this one, so the scaling is sort of offset. Does that make sense? Like its origin isn't where like the, still have to move it around a bit. That's my problem. That's not a problem with the system. So I picked a really bad example to close out here. Again, I'm going to make this available. I got to clean this up. Like this clothing sim isn't, it's called Magica Cloth 2. It's a paid thing, you know, so I can't distribute that. Now I can cover stuff that we might get into in future videos, like a teaser. You know, people have asked about like hit effects and things like that. Again, that stuff can be set up here. That is something I wanted to sort of show you. So like if we look at like the kick here, you know, have that sort of knockdown, but maybe that's like a little wimpy, right? I didn't cover this much, but you know, there's an important aspect you have to set up too, and that's transitions. It's going to new states. You can set it up as just an event, right? But it's really helpful. Again, it's that thing. It's like if you want it generalized or you want it like application specific. I find it really helpful to make transitions their own thing and attacks. They just are so similar yet so different to like an event. I've worked on companies where they are sort of all the same. Not transitions, although you could, but attacks. They're basically just another event, right? And there's power in that, but I just find it easier to separate this stuff out. I used to have a hit roll on that effect. Let's see if that looks any better. Oops. So you can see he spun out a little bit. I think I picked the wrong. It was bugging out. I think that's why I turned it off, honestly. We could just do like the knockback. It's going to send him really far, but see? And let's say like the knockdown here. They're down. Let's do like a slam effect when they hit the ground. Oops, sorry. I forget what hit it is. So now they slam into the ground, like when they get hit. This stuff is all explicit to my game, specific to my game. I know it's tempting, and a lot of you want this because I've heard. I mean, I just know for a fact a lot of you want this. I will be doing videos on this. I don't know how exactly I'm going to do it. I don't want to make any promises I can't keep, but I want to redo the tutorial. I want to sort of make like a little starter kit, but it may not be necessary if I just like provide all this stuff. Also, disclaimer, because this is using like reflection, I don't know, I haven't deployed to any consoles using it. My builds are fine, they work great, but I don't know, there could be some weird stuff. Also, like, data loss can be weird if you're messing with reflection. I haven't had any issues with it. These are just like, you know, just for your own warning. Peep my little notes here, make sure there's anything. Projects will be available. I suppose I can just cover again, like the main thing is like, you want states need to be data. I'm sorry, like figure the rest out if you don't like this, but like you were just like doing yourself a disservice if you don't do something like this, because you can update it at runtime. You saw that stuff I did. I could have gone through and like made a whole attack and stuff, but I'm really tired. States are data. Scriptable objects. There's probably other ways you can do it too, but at least with Unity you can update it at runtime. You know, they are hashed, so you can just grab them really quick. You can type in, you know, make sure you use a naming convention to name them. We use reflection, basically any methods we want. And you saw, like, I made a new method, it updated instantly. I mean, that one isn't at runtime, but instant enough. But the issue arises where if you're using this really generic sort of framework, then you need to make sense of it for yourself. So you're going to have to do a state editor. You don't have to. You could maybe find a way where all your scripts take, and I've done this before, take a, you know, just like a parameters class, and it has like a power, a, you know, a transform, a speed, a rate. A rate is like the rate at which you approach like a certain velocity, which can be really helpful. You know, basically any new variable you might need, you just put it in this class. I know this sounds chaotic, but it works. And it's a way to avoid this, because that way everything is named. And then when you execute those methods, you know, here, you just pass, you know, ev dot param object or class or whatever you call it. And it'll have anything it might need. And it just takes what it needs. As I say this, I wish I would have set that up. It's how I've done it in the past. And in a way, it's kind of what I end up doing anyway, because, you know, some of these things end up taking, you know, game objects and things like that. And when you start doing sound, you may need like just to pass like sound files and things like that. And it seems a little cursed, but, and it is, but no one has to know. I'm a little regretful that I didn't think to set that up. Hopefully it made sense just in the abstract. Basically, maybe I'm being a little redundant at this point. But in your state event, instead of having a list of floats, you would just have, I should have typed it out. Like, class script parameter float power float operator float speed. These are things that almost all your scripts will take, and you know, most of the time it's just going to be pow and operator. A lot of them are just going to take that, like, what do you want to do with another value, and what do you want to do specifically, like what pow, you know what, I'm sorry. You know, what's the value and what's the operation. You know, more complex states like homing attacks, you might need some stuff you'll be like set up already, like you'll have an attack target or whatever that's just stored in the character, but you might need some weird like a range basically. I think I might have that even set up here. Is it called? Oh, what's it called? Shoot. But basically you have like a smooth step, like, so if you're too close to the enemy, then you won't like home in on them, and if you're far back, the velocity is like really great, but there's a limit, and then in between it sort of scales down. Things like that. So again, I'm a little regretful I didn't show this one first. I do sort of recommend this, like you make a new script that might need like a new attribute, like a bool. It's like, let's say is active, like you could store it here if you wanted, although it's a little weird. I would maybe do something else. Anyway, I'm rambling. You don't watch my content if you don't like rambling. If you have questions, please message me. I haven't done this a while. I'm Dreamgirl Games on Blue Sky. Get off Twitter if you're on Twitter, whatever it's called now. I know what it's called. Downloads will be in the description. I'll have this disclaimer once it's all set up. I'll try and get this one up right away. It shouldn't have anything illicit. I can't think of the right word. But basically that main thing is like, and again, for like the 6th time, I will do a video covering how to do this more specifically. But if you just want to jump in and do this, just grab this project, start using it for yourself. A-okay, I want you to do that. Anything I upload, excluding art assets, are available for you to use in your own projects. And by art assets, I basically just mean textures and models. With VFX models, go ahead and use them. I do recommend you sort of make them yourself. Like, what's a VFX model? All that stuff. Like, sorry, I'm rambling a little bit. You can, the chapters will say like she rambles, and you can just skip the end here. But like those slash effects, there's like a disc, and I've made videos on it anyway. But so to be clear, basically just no models and no textures. VFX models are okay for you to use in your own projects. That even means like if you want to copy a particle effect, that's fine. Just don't use the same texture and don't use the same material. I want you to put your own influence on it, you know. But yeah, like all those visual effects you saw, like especially in Our Dreams United, a lot of cool stuff in there. If you're curious, basically all the projects I've shown, like even this one, this was more of a learning project. Because you can see this is like sort of really high quality. This is sort of an update, I guess, for the channel too. But I'm wanting to make something smaller, like something to actually make. I kind of convinced myself that this could be viable. I was gonna like do like a single chapter, but it's just too much, and I feel like the world is like telling me this. I knew it myself. I started just saw some videos, did some sketches for like some like possible smaller games, and then I got invited to this sort of action game arcade Discord from some old like internet friends, and just seeing all their like little projects that are just way more interesting than this, even though this is like more impressive maybe, and just within reach. I don't know, I just am excited, and that excitement has got me making this video, you know. Again, please, you can also message me at taradoak42@gmail.com. My last name is Doak. If you have questions, hopefully I'm not forgetting anything. Hitting you with the ums. Oh yeah, I want to do monthly videos. I think I can do it. I should probably cover this, like specifically the reflection and the editor window stuff next. So that'll probably be it. It'll be a month out. Again, for the 10th time, this will be available. Downloadable in the description from a Google Drive, probably. I'm repeating myself, but you're a-okay to use all this code however you want, but it's at your own risk. But you can literally just like take this project and inject your own project into it. Like, I'm okay with that. I can't answer a lot of questions. I need to say that. Like, it's going to be overwhelming answering like a lot of this stuff. So please just wait for the video where I explain it better. I'm losing my voice, sorry. Gosh, now I want to like go over some of the stuff. I'm going to do a video. I got to stop thinking about it. Yeah, thank y'all so much for the help over you. I still get like new Patreon subscribers. I know it's been literally years. Part of it, and I believe I say it on the Patreon, that it's just to support like the work that I do. I have tons of VFX ideas I want to do. I have, I want to make a more complete character action tutorial. Part of the problem is that I was trying to make like 2 of a general tutorial. I think it would be better to just make it like really character action focused. And then in the future, if we want to do other types of action games. Yeah. This has been nice. It was quite a rocky start. This was my 6th take, and I got pretty far into a couple of the takes, and I just like kind of crashed out and got lost. And but thank y'all so much. Say hi on Blue Sky. Like, I want to follow other devs. Again, that's Dreamgrow Games at Blue Sky. Link in the description. Sorry this outro's taking so long. Go out there and make some games. Love y'all so much. Bye.